Hello. Good morning if it's morning, or, good afternoon, or even good night. I'm the worst with introductions, so you're going to have to excuse my social awkwardness. But welcome to Literally My Life, My Guide to Girlhood. I am your host, and I am so excited to be starting this podcast. I had this idea yesterday. Ignore the plane flying by my house. I live near the airport, but I had this idea yesterday to start a podcast because I am one of those people that like to talk. So get ready for that. But more than just like being a person who likes to talk, I have so many thoughts and just so many ideas. And I think one of the most refreshing things, like, because me personally, I love listening to podcasts. I think one of the most refreshing things about listening to a podcast is like hearing another person's perspective about things, and I just love hearing other people's perspectives and getting their ideas and their thoughts on things. And I thought, why not insert my input into the world and give you my perspective on lots of things. So yesterday I got a lot of like episode ideas and I wrote them all down, and now I'm sitting here recording because I got an idea for an episode and I'm just excited. So, before we get into this episode, I want to have like this disclaimer that this is strictly an opinionated podcast. Like, this is not based on research. I'm not a doctor. I'm literally almost like I'm not even 17 yet. This is literally just me voicing my unwanted opinion. And so, don't come at me. Don't be like, oh, well, you were totally wrong about this because it's an opinion, and opinions can't be wrong. Well, they can be, but not in this matter. This is a judgment free zone. So, in today's episode, I wanted to talk about therapy. Now, therapy, in my opinion, is very stigmatized. Therapy is like, to me, like, therapy is like, oh, therapy's for crazy people. Like, therapy, you only go to therapy if you're crazy. Like, you only go to therapy if you're disturbed. And I hate that stigma. Like, we need to destigmatize therapy because, first of all, in my opinion, I don't think you can be crazy. And let me say this. Before you come for me, I don't think you can be crazy because everybody is a little fucking crazy. Like, there's nobody who's like absolutely bonkers and then you're normal. Like, that's not how it works. Like, we all like weird fucking things. Like, there was a girl I saw on Instagram Reels the other day who liked the color dandelion, like the crayon from Crayola. And she collects it, and she has a room full of like dandelion things, and she collects the crayon because I think it's been discontinued. And she even melted some of like the broken crayons and made like golden like dandelion letters and hung them up. It was so cute. And so it would be so easy to be like, "Oh, you're so like that was fucking weird, like weirdo." But it's not. Like I can't even judge her because I know I can be definitely obsessive when it comes to things that I like. Like, I used to be so obsessed with Barbie dolls. My room used to be filled with dolls, and I had like 5 doll houses, and like it was insane. So but back to the point, like, I don't think you can be crazy because everybody struggles. Like, I think there are some people who obviously struggle with mental health, definitely a little more than others, but you're not crazy for it. Like, if I see somebody having a mental episode in public, like, I'm just like, you know what, they're struggling. Like, this isn't anything to make fun of or to call them crazy about because they're struggling. So, therefore, in my opinion, no one can be crazy. But second reason why we should destigmatize therapy is because we all fucking need it. Like, there's this quote, it's so corny, but you've probably heard it, like, there's strength in vulnerability. There's strength in not being strong. There's strength in, like, asking for help. And I can't tell you how true that is. Like, as I get older, I've learned the importance of asking for help. Like, you don't get a reward for doing it on your own. You don't get a reward for struggling, is what I'm trying to say. Ask for fucking help. Don't be the person who can't ask for help. And if you struggle with that, maybe you should revisit why you struggle with that in therapy. Now, therapy is just so good, in my opinion. I think therapy has a lot of benefits. I think therapy, I love therapy. I think therapy is just the thing. So, I'm going to be talking about therapy, why I think it should be destigmatized, why I think more black people should go to therapy, and like the mental health community within the black community, because I am black, and then like why I personally go to therapy, and like how positive, like non biased perspectives can be. So, yeah. So, I think we've kind of touched on like why we should destigmatize therapy, and basically my reason again was just that there's strength and vulnerability. Like, we should not call people crazy for asking for help. Like, I think I would so much rather somebody ask me for help and say, hey, Alex, I'm really struggling with this, or hey, Alex, like, I'm really having a hard time getting up in the morning. Like, I have no more energy. I'm really depressed. I would so much rather, like, somebody do that than hurt themselves or worse. Like, there's so much strength in asking for help. And it's not easy for some people. Like, I'm not going to take that away. Some people have pride. Some people were born thinking asking for help makes you weak. Like, some people were raised like that. And I just hope that that's something that people can work through, because there's so much strength in asking for help. Now, this is why I think, like, moving on, this is why I think more black people should go to therapy. Okay. So I'm black, but I am multiracial. I grew up in a multiracial family, and so I think my family had a little bit of a different perspective, but I'm black, and I've just noticed within the black community, it is not very common for people to go to therapy. And I think that that should, like, change. Now, am I saying that therapy is for everybody? No. Some people don't like talk therapy. Some people rather journal. Some people, like, have different coping mechanisms. But I don't think it should be, like, you know, it shouldn't be encouraged because we're black. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, not a lot of people, but I've just heard people say, like, oh, like, that's white people shit. Like, only white people go to therapy. Which is so stupid. Like, why does race even play a part into, like, therapy, like, in asking for help in your daily life? Like, that makes no sense to me. Like, I think, honestly, like, that is one of the most stupid things I've ever heard. I think that mental health should be destigmatized within the black community. Like, you're not weak for having depression. You're not lazy because you don't want to get out of bed and brush your teeth. Like, you're suffering with an illness. Like, I feel like people don't understand. Like, if you have a fever, you can't get out of fucking bed and get in the shower and blow dry your hair and brush your teeth because you're sick. You're actually so sick physically that you don't want to get out of bed, and you can just lay there and mope. I've had a lot of fevers. I know. It's the same thing with depression. You don't have the 101-degree temperature, but you still feel that way. You can't get out of bed. You have no energy. You can't do the things that you would do in your normal life because you have an illness blocking you. And so depression is, like, hard. But there are treatments for fevers, which are Motrin and drinking lots of water. There's treatments for depression, and one of them include therapy. So I don't understand why we treat it so differently. And so I think there would be a lot of, like, healing within the black community and healing, like, of generational trauma if we started having conversations about mental health. Like, my parents, I think, did a really good job of talking to me and saying, hey, if you ever have thoughts of hurting yourself, or hey, I think you're in a bad spot right now, I'm going to suggest you go to therapy, or you can always talk to me, you can always lean on me. Having that emotional and mental support literally gave me so much, like, I can't tell you how much that helped me throughout my life. Having that emotional and mental support from both of my parents. And so the ability to go to therapy without judgment from my parents, the ability to, like, even be encouraged, like, I had such good parents that were looking out for me, and I can't even, like, I didn't even realize that until now. But I think therapy should definitely be destigmatized within the Black community so that we can focus on like healing that generational trauma that stems from slavery, that stems from segregation, that stems from, poverty rates in Black neighborhoods. Like, I don't make me look, don't make me get political, nigga. Oh, sorry. But you know what I'm saying? Like, don't make me get political. So, yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about was why I personally go to therapy, because I just wanted to be vulnerable with you guys because there's strength in vulnerability. So, one of the reasons why I go to therapy is because I do struggle with depression. Now, I think it's gotten a lot better over the years in the sense of like it's more treatable, it's more manageable. I have the energy and the strength to get up every morning, to brush my teeth, to blow dry my hair, to do all these things. So I definitely think I'm like very high functioning depressed compared to where I was a couple of years ago. But I've struggled with depression, and it is, it's something like it's something hard to struggle with. Like, and I think I do really good at making sure that I'm okay because I am so high functioning. Like, I'm not going to be paying attention to my feelings all the time because I'm like, really busy. I'm really like one of those people. I'm one of those people who really like school. I'm always caught up in my schoolwork. I'm always like doing homework. I'm always ripping and running for extracurriculars, thinking about college and applications and stuff. So I'm not going to have the time to be like, how did I feel today? Did this make me cry? So I'm like very high functioning because of my ability to stay busy, but I still struggle with depression. I still have trauma, like I still have issues. So I go to therapy, and I have no shame in that. Like, yeah, I see a therapist. That doesn't mean I'm, fucking crazy. Even though I'm a little bonkers, but it's not a bad thing, and I'm not ashamed to tell people that. I'm not ashamed to talk to people about my therapy journey. I'm not ashamed to encourage people to go to therapy. I'm not even ashamed to like be someone's therapist. Like, if you ever want to talk to me, I'm right here for you. And that applies to anyone. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, like, I really need somebody to talk to, please, like, DM me. I will listen to you. We can have a conversation. Like, it, there's so much strength in reaching out. But I personally go to therapy to manage my depression and to manage my trauma. Because I love this quote. It says, your trauma is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. And I think that is so true. I didn't have a really difficult childhood, but, I did have some childhood trauma. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't manifest itself into adulthood. And, I'm turning 18 next year. I'm going to college. I'm moving out of state. Like, I'm about to be my own person. I'm about to start paying rent. I'm about to start cooking for myself all the time. You know, like, I'm about to start doing all kinds of things. I'm, like, gonna be on my own. And in my day to day life, like, I know as an adult, as I manage relationships and friendships with people, I don't want my trauma getting between having a healthy relationship with people. And that's not just like romantic relationships. I'm talking about like friendships. I'm even talking about the relationship with myself. Because trauma can mess with the relationship you have with yourself. And I say that like, you know, this is a really good example. When I was a kid, I was called fat a lot. A lot of people called me fat. Everybody, like my family members called me fat. Not my parents, but like other family members. People at school called me fat. People on social media called me fat. Like, I was called fat a lot. And it kind of, like, it was like very traumatizing for me because I was so young. I was like 10, 11 years old. My body was still developing, and that wasn't my forever body. But it was just so hard to be called fat all the time. So, with this issue of being called fat all the time, it became like a part of who I thought I was, and it got into like my subconscious, and I kind of in my head looked at myself like, if you've ever seen Insatiable on Netflix, like they call her Fatty Patty, I think, and that's how I saw myself, literally as like a fatty, like Fatty Patty. And that's so, like, it was so ridiculous on so many levels because, first of all, your body at 11, you're like starting puberty. Of course, you're going to gain weight and you're going to, like, that's not your forever body. So, people who like call children fat are so weird. But on another level, it's stupid because you only live once and you only have one body. And I've learned to cherish the body that I'm in, and I've just worked really hard these past few years to cherish this body that I have and to work on not comparing myself to like Summer Rae and like Instagram models because I used to really struggle with that. And so I work really hard now just to love the body that I'm in. And so I don't let that like trauma of being made fun of and bullied by like family members and by friends for being fat, like I don't want it to manifest in the relationship I have with myself. And I struggle with that. Like one of the things I'm working on right now is positive self-talk. Like reprogramming my thoughts in the way I talk to myself. I'm not gonna, like, if I'm sitting down right now and I'm recording and I look at myself in the mirror next to me and I have like a few rolls on my stomach as I'm sitting. And I'm like, you know what? So what? I'm a tall girl. I have rolls on my stomach. So what? Everybody has flab, everybody has fat, and if they don't have flab, they probably have plastic surgery, which is a whole other episode, but it's a body. Like, that's what I think. I think the issue with our generation, seriously, is that we set these, like, extremely unrealistic expectations of what a body should look like because of the normalization of plastic surgery. So now that everybody can get their bodies altered and have the Barbie body, it's unnormal to have a normal body. So when I look at my cellulite, when I look at my stretch marks, when I look at my stomach rolls or my arm fat, I'm just like, instead of being like, oh, you're so fat, oh, you need to work out, oh, Alex, I'm like, you know what? It's a body. You have an actual body, and that's a gift from God. And I'm learning to appreciate my body. Like, this is a woman's body. Like, I can give birth. Like, the circle of life happens through me. Like, I can't knock myself down for having a fat roll. I can't do that because that's just not fair to myself at all. But beyond that, I'm just learning to reprogram my thoughts and the way I talk to myself because the way you talk to yourself matters. You're in your head all the time. It's the one place you never fucking leave. The way you talk to yourself fucking matters. Like, you can't talk to yourself like trash and then be like, why do I have such low self esteem? Why do I always feel this way about myself? Because of the way you're talking to yourself. You can't let the way people talk to you or the things people say about you become the things that you say to yourself. And that's something that I've struggled with, but I've looked at myself and I'm like, I'm a beautiful person. I have so many great qualities. I'm not a fatty patty, and I can't see myself like that anymore. And that's something I've learned through therapy. And that's like one of the biggest reasons I go to therapy. So, yeah, for when it comes to therapy, that was like my lesson on how you can't let your trauma manifest itself into relationships, whether this is a relationship you have with another person or with yourself. And so that's how I'm not letting my issues with self-esteem mess with the way I talk with myself and my relationship with myself. I'm a lot more confident than I used to be, and I'm very happy with myself. I'm very happy with the way I look, and I love my body. I don't have issues with a flab or a fat roll or anything because it's a body and it does so many great things for me every day, and I'm so so thankful for it. So, yeah. Moving on, another thing I wanted to talk about was how like positive, like new non-biased perspectives can be. So, this is unpaid promotion, but I love Anything Goes by Emma Chamberlain, the podcast. It is such a good podcast. I love it. It's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to start my own. I was listening to her episode yesterday, and I was listening to this episode about whether you can have, like, it was a question on, can you be in love and still, like, can you be deeply in love and have a healthy relationship and still be career driven and, like, pursue your career? And it was a really good episode, but she was just talking about how maybe it's good, like, sometimes to be in a relationship with somebody who's not in your career field because they can give you like a non-biased perspective. And that's like essentially therapy. So like I love talking to my therapist about my friends and my issues, partially because my therapist doesn't know my friends and doesn't know the people in my day-to-day life, and doesn't like, it's so refreshing to have someone who doesn't know these people and isn't biased, and so they can hold you accountable more easily than maybe your friends of friends. So it's easier for them to hold you accountable and where you might have been wrong in the situation because your therapist doesn't know. Like, it's so amazing. And I love how therapists can just I'm trying to figure out a way to put this into words. But I just love how they give you just such a non-biased perspective on things. And it really opens your eyes, like getting a different perspective, hearing things from a different point of view. So when I talk to my friends, like, hey, I have 5 really, really close girlfriends in my life, and 2 of them this year didn't invite me to their birthday party, and I got really mad, and I unfriended them on social media. And so talking to a therapist is like, okay, the therapist could hold you accountable. Like, why was your first reaction to unfriend them? Why wasn't your reaction to ask them what's going on? Why wasn't your first reaction communication? And like, that is such a blessing. Like, that is such a gift to hear to be held accountable from a non-biased perspective. So I just think that's one of the greatest gifts of therapy, honestly. Talking to somebody who doesn't know the people in your everyday life and doesn't, can hold you accountable easier because they're non-biased. They're not on your side, they're not on their side. They're in the middle. They're actually neutral, and that can be very, very refreshing. So, in the end, I just think that we should destigmatize the whole concept of therapy. I think that we should stop saying that therapy is for crazy people. I think more black people and just communities of color should go to therapy. I don't think therapy should be labeled as white people, like a thing for white people. I think that is so stupid, and we should not bring race into this. There's so much strength and vulnerability, and there's so much strength in asking for help. And like I said, therapy is like treatment for your illness. It's treating your fever. It's your Motrin. But it's treating your depression. It's treating your anxiety. It's treating your OCD, your BPD, your bipolar depression. Things that we struggle with. On that note, I want to end off with another quote. I'm a quotes person. And there's a quote that was like, I can't quote it exactly, but it was like, you know that you have an illness, but don't let that illness define you. It's like when you're walking in the rain and you use that umbrella, you may shield under that umbrella. You may use that umbrella, but you are not that umbrella. So know that you are more than your depression. You are more than your anxiety. You are more than those bad thoughts about yourself. You have so many great qualities, and it may take you a while to realize that, the same way it took me a while. But you will realize that. And I pray and I hope that you realize your worth and you realize how, like, wonderful, like, how truly wonderful you are. And on that note, thank you for listening to the first episode of Literally My Life, uh, my guide to girlhood. Feel free to send me a DM on Instagram about episode topics which you would like to be heard about, or if you just need someone to talk to, I'm always here. Thank you guys so much. Until next time.